This is my review of Jujutsu Kaisen episode 20. So we first open to a bridge, and then we see a kid beating up another kid. We have Todo narrating. He says that the kid is him. He's beating up a high schooler who we thought was being too cocky. He hates cocky people, so he just started beating him up, and he's bored. He's bored by the high schooler. The high schooler is boring, and so the fight was boring. He's just bored. He didn't enjoy it and stuff. He's just sitting on the kid, and then a woman congratulates him, and he turns and sees this woman, I think with a motorcycle, on the road, or where the bridge was, which is like up a hill a bit. And the woman takes her helmet off, and she asks Todo what kind of women he likes. And Todo reveals that this woman made him, she broke him out of his boredom, and she made life not boring for him, basically. And we come back to Itadori and Todo versus Hanami. Motherfucker. Miwa's still my favorite character. Maki's my second, and Hanami, because of all this, is definitely broke third. I still don't know if Hanami's male or female or what the fuck, but Hanami's definitely my third favorite character, probably followed by Gojo and then Todo. Jogo's up there too, and fucking Nanami and fucking Mahita. I don't know. A lot of characters are big. It seems like my favorite characters fluctuate, honestly, with who I'm being exposed to at a particular time. But Todo says it's time to use my technique. And then we kind of cut into Todo's mind, and he's analyzing Hanami's abilities, really speculating a lot about their limitations based on what he's seen. I didn't write down specifically what he said, but I think he says something like Hanami has to have its foot on the ground to make roots come out of the ground to hit them. It flicks these balls, and those are what hit Fushiguro, and he's hoping he can only use a few of those at a time. He remarks about how it can suspend roots in midair and then attack from them, but it can only attack like in a singular direction and stuff. A lot of like speculation about its limitations. And he acknowledges that he doesn't know. All of what he's speculating could be completely wrong, and it could have all kinds of different things it can do with its abilities that he doesn't know about. But he says none of that matters as long as we don't let it think. Basically saying as long as it can't use its abilities to their fullest potential, then it doesn't matter what its abilities actually are. And then he says that he has an IQ 530,000 mental CPU, which I guess is basically just saying his brain works really fast. And he's really intelligent. I don't know. I don't know what that line meant exactly. But he's very confident in himself. And he has a whole lot of faith in Itadori as well. So they begin rushing Hanami, and immediately a tree root comes out of the ground and grabs Todo. I think one of his thoughts was that it had to come from the direction of Hanami. This one actually comes from behind him. I think that's what gets him caught off guard, and it starts kind of tossing him through the air, getting speed. It's not obvious, but I think it was like doing this maneuver where like you're whipping him around, and it throws him, and then Hanami raises like a bed of spikes, and Todo's gonna hit those, and Hanami immediately rushes Itadori because Itadori was distracted by Todo being thrown. But then Todo claps, and we see that Hanami is the one who got impaled on the bushes. I just had a thought. I'll come back to it in a second. We cut to Itadori, and we see that he punched Todo like that, because that's who was going to punch Hanami. And Todo calls his power Boogie Woogie, and basically he claps, and it teleports his position with his enemy and stuff. The thing I was going to bring up, Hanami was not in motion, but Todo was, and even though he's swapping their places, he shouldn't be able to swap his momentum with Hanami, but he did. He swapped his momentum of being flung into the spikes with Hanami, which doesn't make any sense. Like, if you think about logically, Hanami should have just appeared standing where Todo was, and then Todo should have still went flying in the direction he was going. But that's, just an oversight, probably by mangaka. And then him and Itadori kind of talk for a second. Todo says, "We will end this before they can use it." Or he can use it. And it's not clear what he's referring to, but I imagine he's referring to domain expansion because Itadori was seemed concerned about something. So I imagine that was what was going through their head. They rush Hanami together and Todo starts clapping. And they just start beating the fuck out of Hanami, and Todo's constantly clapping, so Hanami can't defend because, as Hanami says, they have different builds, and what that means is they're different heights, so if they're punching, it's coming from a different height, so you have to adjust for that. They have different speeds because of the different sizes of them. They have a different amount of strength. There's just so many factors. There's going to be different ways that they attack because they have a different background in fighting and stuff. There's just too many factors to account for, so you can't actually counter that easily. Like I said, Todo will be coming from up here, and then Itadori will be coming from down here. So you block for Todo, and it's just Itadori will hit you like that, or vice versa. There's just no way to account for all that. It's just overwhelming Hanami entirely. And Hanami even mentions that they don't know if Todo's going to swap with them or with Itadori, so that's another thing that's making Hanami hesitate. He doesn't, even if he can block one of their attacks, Todo can always just swap with him, with one of them, and it's just it's just too much to account for. So Hanami can't even think at this point. It's just overwhelming him entirely. It's just so much going on. It's hard to keep up with it just watching it. So you can imagine how hard it would be in that situation to keep up with what the fuck is going on when you're being attacked like that. I think this is brilliant. This is the best piece of fighting I've seen in the whole franchise so far. Well, whole series. I won't say franchise, because this is my own expression of Jujutsu Kaisen. They attack some more. We cut to Nanami, and Nanami explains the use of Black Flash consecutively. Nanami says it's hard just to hit 2 in a row, and it says something about even across a couple days, and I don't know what he meant by that exactly. He says after hitting one, you'll have a different understanding of cursed energy, which we already know, and he says you enter a place that the athletes call the zone, basically meaning that they enter a position of intense focus and drive. They're in tune with what they're doing. And then Nanami reveals that he managed to use Black Flash 4 times consecutively at once. And we see Itadori lands a Black Flash. It looked more painful, I think, than the one we saw before. Hanami coughs up some blood after getting hit, and then Itadori jumps up and kicks Hanami in the head, and then delivers a punch downward. That's 2 more Black Flashes, really fucking Hanami up. And Todo is really amazed to see 3 Black Flashes in a row, and he claps, and Hanami was ready for Itadori to come behind him and attack him because of the clap, but nothing happens. And Todo says that he's no longer bored because Itadori's basically cleared his boredom up. And Hanami realizes that nothing happened, and then Itadori lands a really devastating black flash on Hanami. That Hanami couldn't defend because he expected Itadori to switch places. And basically Todo just reveals that just because he clapped doesn't mean that he's using his ability, which is obvious. But there's a whole level of psychological warfare going on there with that. It'd be like if you get used to reading someone's face in poker, and you think you know what they're going to do, and then they realize you're doing that, so they start using that to make you think that they're going to do something, and then they do something else. We cut to commercial break, come back, the two-wheeled balls take up into the air. Itadori and Todo rush on him again. The balls come at them, they immediately destroy the balls. And then Hanami attacks Todo. Todo grapples with him, throws him to the ground. The animation here looked really good. There was a small part earlier when they were pummeling Hanami that looked a little off, but not bad. The attacks just looked a little too weak. But that was the only thing that I could really criticize with this whole episode. And that is overshadowed just by how well structured this is, in my opinion, this fight. So like I said, Todo throws Hanami down. They're coming in with some big hits on Hanami, and there's some jazzy music playing. We're really getting into the best part of this fight here. Hanami uses a fucking tree power to go up in the air. The animation looks so good. Mappa's going all out with this scene. Hanami kind of does that, telling them to come at him. Todo claps and switches himself with Hanami. Some roots go after Todo when he went to Hanami's location while Hanami attacks Itadori. Showing that Hanami's getting used to fighting the two of them at once and also getting used to reading what Todo's going to do and predicting what he's going to do. Hanami and Itadori both punch each other in the face. Itadori recognizes that Hanami's adapting, but while he's adapting, he's also slowing down due to the black flash barrage he was hit with. Todo believes they can win. They're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, basically. Hanami says they've never been hurt this much, but they are enjoying themselves. Hanami creates a big mouth, and it has a bunch of buds with mouths on them. Todo recognizes this as being the things that attacked Fushiguro. He uses Boogie Woogie and swaps Itadori with Hanami now. So now Todo and Hanami are in the line of fire of these things as they start leaping out of the fucking plant. Todo raises his cursed energy to try to repel the buds, but then he enters a fantasy about Takada in high school, and she tells him to remember Fushiguro. Takada's the idol he likes. And she basically says the buds had grown and that Todo needs to think of why they had grown. It says it's possible that they grew due to absorbing his blood, but since they're made of cursed energy, it would make more sense that they fed on cursed energy. So Todo, kind of realizing this, he drops his cursed energy, and then the buds just bounce off of him because there's no cursed energy for them to latch onto. Only one gets stuck in his arm, and he thinks to win, he'll next be able to see Takada so he can thank her for helping him with this fight. Hanami's distracted, thinking that he didn't know Todo could not only swap it and Itadori, but also that Todo figured out how to counter its fucking buds as well. After Hanami's hit, Toto drops his fucking foot like onto Hanami's shoulder and really drives it down. Toto thinks to himself that Hanami's starting to realize that his powers aren't as simple as he thought, but there's more to them than that, and that he can actually just swap anything with anything else as long as both things have curse energy. They end up chasing Hanami to the riverbed where they started their fight. And we see Toto swaps Itadori out with Playful Cloud, the 3-section staff that Maki had. And we get a flashback to when Panda was going to carry Fushiguro off, and he tells Toto that Playful Cloud was in the riverbed, and that Hanami's face is where the true branches are, is its weak point. And then we see Hanami just slams Toto slams Hanami in the face with Playful Cloud, breaking its true branch eyes. I still think those are like sensory, like they go up here and they're like an antenna. They like allow it to see or at least sense 160 degrees. Because I swear to God, a couple episodes ago there was a moment where Hanami blocked an attack from behind it, but I'm not 100%. After getting hit in the face, Hanami immediately strikes back. And Toto kind of realizes that, like, it's, it didn't take as much damage as he would have thought it would. We see Hanami has its left arm on the ground, and it's sucking all the life out of the surrounding vegetation. Hanami reveals that it can't actually use this. What it's doing is it's converting the life force of the plants to cursed energy, obviously, but it can't actually use the cursed energy. The cursed energy instead awakens in the form of a rosebud that's on this left arm, on the shoulder specifically, and it's gathering its power to use its own domain expansion. And then immediately the veil above them was dispelled, and we see Gojo's flying in the air above them like a fucking Dragon Ball Z character. We cut back to the principal and the butcher. The veil's still up. The old man is playing guitar, and it unleashes some cursed energy at the butcher character. And the butcher character kind of analyzes and realizes that he thought the guitar sounded too good without an amp, and that's because the cursed energy itself is acting as an amplifier, and specifically is able to, like, I guess, use sound waves to attack. That's how I understood it. And the butcher plans to make the old man a wallet, and then we come back to Utahime. She says Mei has Miwa, and she kind of talks about her ability and how she can see stuff. Then a blonde man attacks Utahime. And she kind of realizes that he's a human curse user. And she looks at his weapon that he tried to attack her with, and it's like a blade, but it has a hand as the hilt of the blade, so when he's holding it, it's like a hand holding his hand. And he says that Juzo made it for him, and I was assuming that Juzo was the butcher, and then we get a flashback immediately after confirming that Juzo is indeed the butcher. He says something like he's too weak, so he needs someone to hold his hand or something. I can't remember exactly. But then Nabar and Mai show up, and Nabar kind of just talks to the guy and stuff. It was cool to see those two kind of having to team up, because, you know, Nabar isn't really a fan of Mai, and Mai tells her not to get shot, and Nabar tells her she shouldn't be trying to shoot her in the first place. Makes me wonder if Mai would be using real bullets here instead of cursed or rubber bullets. I mean, I would imagine that would be the case, but I don't know. That would imply that Mai had real bullets in the first place. The veil gets destroyed, and then the blonde guy immediately runs away, knowing that doesn't bode good for them. Juzo sees Gojo and starts talking about wanting to turn him into stand. And then Hanami decides that they're going to stop and leave because clearly they just don't want to fight Gojo. We already saw Jogo get annihilated. Nobody stands a chance against Gojo, really. And Gojo has to stop and try to figure out where he wants to attack first. Itadori sees Gojo finally and kind of yells at him. Gojo looks down and sees that Itadori's gotten a lot more powerful, and then he looks to Todo and says that he thinks Todo is a good match for him to bring his strength out. He figures they're okay fighting Hanami, so he decides to go after Juzo first. The old man freaks out when Gojo gets there because he believes he's going to kill Juzo, probably because he's just so fucking powerful. But Gojo just fucks Juzo's limbs up. It looked like he twisted them, but later on they're deflated, so I think it's more likely that Gojo just crushed his bones to dust, basically. But I don't know. His fucking extremities that were just bloodied and fucked, and he just falls to the ground. And he tells the principal to heal him to make sure he doesn't die, which is not only, deals with Juzo, but also locks old principal down, because then since he's healing and trying to keep Juzo alive, he can't go after Itadori and try to kill him. Gojo then says that the blonde guy escaped somehow, which is very interesting because that means Gojo has some kind of a sensory ability where he's able to see everything that's going on, because he no longer could see him or feel his presence or something. So he's got some kind of an extra sensory ability. That's very interesting to me. And then Gojo decides that since Hanami's the one left, and he knows Hanami's particularly good at running away based on the fact that it grabbed Jogo and took off. In their last encounter, Gojo decides it's a good idea to take Hanami out now. So he uses a cursed amplification technique called Blue, and then a reversed amplification technique called Red. I already talked about this. I don't know what reversed means, what a reverse curse is. We need a lot more explanation on that, I think. If it was ever explained, I don't remember it, but I don't think it has been explained. And he's gonna fuse them together to make purple, I assumed. Hanami says that they're not arrogant enough to fight Gojo, so it's gonna run away. Itadori tries to rush after Hanami, but Todo stops him. The red and blue do indeed fuse to make purple. And Gojo sends it off, calling it Hollow Purple, and it's this massive energy ball that twists and starts carving its way through the land in the direction that Gojo fired it. Hanami wraps itself all the way up in tree roots, but very shortly after they completely cover Hanami, Hollow Purple just comes in and annihilates it. So I don't know if the tree roots needed to recede, or if just them covering Hanami moved, but I assume that they needed to recede. Either way, they're gone, and Todo says, well, now we can't even tell if he got Hanami or not because everything's just been destroyed in that area. Juzo's sitting there crying about how he's in pain, his injuries suck, and the fucking principal's telling him to shut up. Gojo celebrates, he fucking brings his thing down and goes, yay! It was pretty funny. He says something about that was all of them, or rather the ones that were here, or something like that, and then we cut to Mahito, and Mahito's in this garage with two people that look like they were sorcerers that are now curses. And Mahito wonders if Hanami is safe or not, and then reveals that Mahito got the fingers, sucking his fingers. And then we have a juju stroll, and all the Tokyo students are asked if they like dogs or cats, and Panda's in the background of every fucking answer, watching the person. And then Panda gets pissed off that none of them said Panda. but they're like pandas, and says everyone hates him. It was pretty funny. Oh no, this was a fantastic fucking episode. Best episode of the series. This is how I like fights to be done, as I've said. I like them to be multiple episodes. I like them to keep moving. And in particular, this is the best blend of like the two extremes I've ever seen, where a character has to fight and they have to think while they're fighting. It's not some stupid shit like you get in Naruto where the character can just stop and think up a complex plan for half an episode. Hanami literally has to think on the spot and can't because they're just being pummeled constantly. I always like that about Dragon Ball, because Dragon Ball you can't just stop and think most of the time. There are a couple exceptions to that, but most of the time they're just on, the fly, coming up with an idea and trying to enact it. But this was absolutely a fantastic fight. I would hope to see more fights like this. This fight lasted like 3 episodes. It's just really incredible. Perfect blend of everything I like about fights. Perfect example of a fight. Phenomenal. Like I said, I had like one minor criticism, and it just doesn't even matter in the wake of like everything this episode did right. I don't honestly know how they can top this. I still definitely hope to see Gojo challenged at some point, but God, I don't know how. Even if you had all of the fucking curses attack him at the same time, Geto, Mahito, Joko, the Octopus, and Hanami, they would just get destroyed by him. You can't even tell how they could realistically beat him in like an actual fight. Obviously they have a plan to seal him, and I'm not talking about that, I mean in a fight. And knowing about that, I don't see how he could beat Sakura. Because Sakura is going to be so much more powerful than he is. I don't know. It's crazy to think about. But I definitely hope to see more fights like this in the future of the series. The next preview looked like it was going to have something to do with baseball. Hopefully we get a resolution to this Hanami thing and find out whether Hanami really died or not. I would hope not. I would hope to see more of Hanami, especially because we didn't get to see their domain expansion. But I really like the idea of like getting to know the antagonists over time and their faction, and the characters are going to fight multiple times. Very different from what you get a lot of the time in Shonen. But yeah, I don't know. I did say it should be emotional when one of the curses dies, because they're all kind of close, but if Hanami dies this early, they might not be as close as they would have been in the future. I don't know. That's episode 20. Fantastic. It's fucking 99.9% fucking perfect. Yeah. It is just an incredible fucking episode.